On the Paris climate signing and Earth Day, I spoke earlier to Yoav Magid. He's the Earth Day campaign director at the Earth Day Network. I asked him about how far we've come since Earth Day's inception back in 1970.
So as you said, it started in 1970. It got 20 million people out onto the streets and into classrooms and into movie screenings, and people really got together, 20 million of them, and started a movement. And the first Earth Day is often credited with being the start of the modern environmental movement. And how is it different? So over the years, the environmental movement has grown. And as you know, Earth Day is currently celebrated or engaged with by about 1 billion people all over the world, not just the US anymore. It grew from 20 million people in the US to something much, much larger. So the environmental movement is much bigger and it's much stronger, and people are much more aware of what's going on in the world. People are aware of the pollution that needs to be stopped. People are aware of the climate that is changing, the temperatures that are rising. So that's obviously very different, and that leads to things like the Paris Agreement, where countries got together because of this awareness and because of the environmental movement that started with the first Earth Day. That's what gets us here today.
Let's talk about hits along the way, because 2009 Copenhagen, there was the failure. So we have an agreement in Paris, but as you point out, the numbers don't add up. It's a game of catch up. Many other people who are critical of this agreement say that, it's voluntary, it's unenforceable, and that the progress needs to be accelerated. And I'm sure you probably share that view. Where should we be?
Yeah, so as you said, a lot of people are complaining that it's not necessarily enforceable, but when you look at the momentum that exists currently, when you look at how quickly these 160, 170 world leaders got together to sign it on the first day that is open for signing, Earth Day today, when you look at the momentum that exists and how people want to raise the bar, I think we're going in the right direction. So yes, it's not per se going fast enough yet, but we're really getting there. But where should we be? Well, actually, I was just talking to one of our partners, Climate Interactive, and one of their analysts told me, in order for us to get to the 1.5-degree warming that the Paris Agreement calls for, the US needs to cut its emissions by about 60% ASAP, and so does Europe. China is actually doing pretty well on this front. But we all need to get together and work on this together.
Let me ask you one final question before we go. When I think about your efforts, I think of the little engine that could, because you're up against a lot of really strong forces. I mean, there's big oil, you know the coal's out there. There's so many forces on the other side fighting this. Talk to me about the struggle and how difficult it's been and what plays in your favor.
It is a difficult struggle because a lot of these old fossil fuels, oil, coal, they have a lot of money that they can use and leverage against the environmental movement and against environmental progress. They can buy politicians and they can buy policies. So that obviously works against us. But we've got the people. We've got, more than half of Americans who believe in climate change, understand that it's, human caused, and are doing something against it. And in the US, it's just a little over half of the population. In the rest of the world, there isn't so much denialism, and everybody believes that climate change is real and man-made. And so we have the manpower or the people power to step up and fight these interests. So that's what we've got going in our favor. And as you see, that leads to something like the Paris Agreement. And it leads to coal companies going broke. And it leads to a massive increase in solar energy and wind energy. We've got technology in our favor.